Do you actually have to be on cocaine to be on this podcast?
It's a great day to be a Wildcat!
Cocaine.
Durfing.
What is up, everybody? You're listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie. I am your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and we are the official K-State representative on the College Huddle. I am joined this week, as always, by my co-host, the good chef, Andre Napier. And I think Fireball Matt might still be in Canada. I'm not really 100% sure where he is, but I went to Cancun because I lost locks and fantasy. Y'all shipped me off to Cancun and I had a hell of a time, but I am back and I'm ready to talk some ball.
As am I.
Let's get into it. But before we get into it, and I'm not drinking right now because I'm taking a 2-week break before the holidays because I drank a lot of all-inclusive stuff last week. But this beer crack, formerly Beer Crack, is brought to you by Annie Mae's Parlor, located at 616 North 12th Street, right in the heart of Aggieville in Manhattan, Kansas. Annie Mae's has been in business for 50 years and is an absolute must-visit destination in Aggieville on game days and school nights alike. It is collectively, I think, probably our favorite bar. I know it's Matt's favorite bar. I know it's my favorite bar. Chef, how many times have you been to Mae's? I know you've been, but...
I've been, I haven't, maybe 4 times.
4 times? There we
Four
go.
times.
And of those 4 times, definitely your favorite bar. So collectively, unanimously, our favorite bar in Aggieville. And we always make a point to go visit our auntie every time we come back to the Little Apple. They feature a wide variety of craft cocktails, draft beers, and everything in between, along with events like live music, comedy, and all sorts of other stuff. Trivia Smackdown they have. Pie and cocktails. That's happening tonight as you're listening to this live, if you are. They're doing pie and cocktails. It sounds amazing. I would love to have some pie and drink cocktails, but again, I'm not drinking for the next 2 weeks because I gotta save my tolerance for when the in-laws come to town
For eggnog.
a few days. And for eggnog. Big eggnog guy. Love throwing a little bit of tin cup whiskey in there. And Annie Mae's Trivia Smackdown, that's tomorrow. Underground Guitar Pull, that's going to be Thursday. Not November. It's December now, December 12th. And then I don't know how to pronounce this. LYXE, likes or licks, lies with Headlight Rivals is performing Saturday, December 14th at Annie Mae's Parlor. So all sorts of events. Check those out at anniemays.com to get the full list and make sure you check out your auntie the next time you're in Manhattan. Chef, I know it's been a couple weeks since we last spoke. I haven't gotten a chance to chat about the Iowa State game, but that's far in the past now at this point. We're moving on. K-State has had the announcement of the bowl game that we will be attending along with the opponent that we will be facing. It's going to be the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who we've talked about probably more on this pod this season than we ever had in years past. I know a couple of us had Kyle Monongai running back on our fantasy teams the last few weeks, but I guess just where are you thinking? I mean, I'm a hell of a lot more excited about this than I would be about the Liberty Bowl, but how do you think about the opponent? How do you think about the location, the bowl game itself? Where are your initial reactions to the bowl pick?
I was glad, after losing that Iowa State game, that really took you out of contention for those upper echelon bowl games that were promised to the Big 12. So it did stink that we lost those, but out of the ones that we were, being reported that we could be in contention for, the Rate Bowl is obviously the best of that bunch. And I'm glad, a prime destination for the team to go, for families to go, for fans to go, a good date the day after Christmas. I always like that, and then a good opponent, a Big Ten opponent. They're way hotter going into this game than we are. We'll see where they are in terms of personnel. I know they're going through a little coaching flux as well. On top of, maybe holdouts for their top tier guys. Who knows if Monangai is going to play or anything like that? But it's bowl season, so really what you're asking for is just that younger talent. And we'll see if we can keep some of that when we talk the transfer portal. I'm sure we'll bring up some of those players and names that we're thinking or who we're hoping to hold on to. But the Rate Bowl, not the guaranteed Rate Bowl, just the Rate Bowl. Love a good name change. It's a good destination. So I'm excited. I'm happy that it's versus this Big Ten opponent, and maybe we can rub their noses in it a little bit.
I agree. I'm also, now that they've rebranded this to Rate Bowl, it used to be Guaranteed Rate. And I was just looking, did they rename Chicago's the White Sox Stadium too? And they have not renamed the Chicago White Sox Stadium yet. It's still Guaranteed Rate Field. But you would imagine that's coming at some point, right?
Yeah, you would imagine. I don't know where any of this stuff is. I don't even know what is Guaranteed Rate. I don't know. Is this insurance? Is this?
I think it's mortgage. I think it's a mortgage thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the bowl sponsor tie-ins for the most part are all. I think it's dumb, with the exception of the Pop-Tart, because the Pop-Tart was obviously just one of the best. Like, you have to lean into it. You have to make it fun and exciting. Otherwise, no one cares about rate.com. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I remember when GoDaddy had their little run with it. That was always a good. I mean, Pacific Life. I didn't know anything about Pacific Life, but I knew they had a whale on their logo, and that. Every time I see that logo, I know that is the damn Holiday Bowl, Pacific Life Holiday Bowl.
Qualcomm Stadium, formerly, may it rest in peace. I think bowl game wise, I'm happy with the pick. I'm happy with the opponent. I've come back to this a couple of times on the pod just over the course of the last 3 years that we've been doing this, and we never play Big Ten teams, and it kind of sucks. Like, I love when we get an opportunity in a bowl game to play a Big Ten team, just because I know when we were kind of going around at one point, like, what would be your ideal, road home split against, like, a home and home that you're going to do with another team. I think I said Wisconsin, just because I've heard great things about people who I know who went to Wisconsin, about Camp Randall and this and that. And granted, Rutgers is, maybe not necessarily what you think of when you think of like a Big Ten football culture, similar to the shoe at Ohio State or the Big House in Michigan or, Penn State, all these other places. But I'm glad that we're going to get a shot, because Big 12 doesn't always get a shot against Big Ten teams unless your name is West Virginia for whatever reason and you're playing Penn State in a non-conference game. So I'm glad, because I think the Big 12 needs to get these shots, these opportunities to play Big Ten teams. I think it's going to be good for the conference if we can get a win against Rutgers here. And I think something to keep in our back pocket, at least going into this game, if we need a silver lining to go off of, it's the strength of schedule and knowing that Rutgers went 7-5 with the 60th best strength in schedule in the country, compared to, we went 8-4 on the 39th or 40th. So
yeah, this is not even a knock against Rutgers or anything like that. They obviously didn't play the toughest of Big Ten schedules. The Big Ten does have some heavy hitters in it, but Rutgers missed for the most part all of them. But this is more for the K-State perspective, that you get a win. If you can get a win, how it can springboard you, similar to how the hype was building up into this season after beating NC State, another, proud program of the ACC. That team was a little bit better than this Rutgers team, but it's still all the same, similar to, what can you say, what was it, the Texas Bowl versus LSU. Even though that was a depleted LSU team, getting that win to go into the Big 12 championship season, just getting bowl wins is exciting, and it helps the brand. Having no matter how small the bowl or what kind of bowl you're in, when they have on ESPN Plus, you get to watch the trophy ceremony or anything like that. That warms my heart as a K-State fan if we can get those. So there was a while where we were not getting bowl wins, and it sucked. I hated it. I hated the bowl streak that we were not getting, that we were not on. But now, Kleiman seems to have, kind of figured it out, and he gets bowl victories, and it's nice to win in the postseason for the brand, for all of those reasons. But this is one of those things where you get 15 bowl practices for the young cats, get those cats maybe playing in that game, give you a little preview of what to come, because that's what we did last year. Avery came in, that was his full start, and he looked good, and that gave us promise. So maybe somebody breaks out in this game. Who knows? Maybe it's the O-line. We'll get into those the portal talk about who may or may not be on the roster next year.
On that note, and I'm not sure, I've never been a football coach, so I don't know, and certainly not at the Power 4 level, but you would have to imagine that being able to prep for a bowl game and being able to get those extra practices, it might make it an easier sell for certain guys to stay with the program who are maybe on the fence, keeping them in the culture, keeping them in that routine of being in practice, being with the coaching staff, unless maybe the reason they're leaving is a coaching related thing. And that would maybe work negatively against you, but you would have to think there might be a positive, at least with guys that you want to keep who are good culture fits for your program. That certainly can't hurt you, as opposed to if you're a 5-7 team and you're trying to keep everything intact. That's got to be a much harder sell.
Right.
Or if you're 6-6 or 7-5 and you're going to the Liberty Bowl, or I mean, I don't even know what the bottom tier bowl game is for the Big 12 right now, but
I don't know. But like you were saying, keeping these guys in the program where they're spending more time with Coach True, they're having more workouts. They're not just like, season's over, we're going to cut, we're going to have our meetings with the players, and half of them don't want to be there because season's over. We weren't successful or anything like that. I feel like as poorly as the season ended, I think we have the leaders on this team that want to keep working, to keep participating, and keep those guys that might be on the fence on the team to go forward and try a strong 2025.
Yeah. Well, I know we've seen and heard a lot about how Avery behind the scenes is kind of trying to work his magic. And, I don't know. I think about, this is going to be a dumb, nerdy analogy, but you think in politics, you got like a whip who works for your party in Congress. He's trying to whip votes and get things going. I think of Avery as kind of like, he's like Coach Clement's whip right now. He's trying to whip guys into shape, make sure that they're sticking around. If they're guys we want to have stick around, he's doing the work behind the scenes to make it happen. And we saw over the weekend, Lincoln Cure posted a GIF, a meme on Instagram on his story with his face, Avery's face, Dylan Edwards' face, and Jace Brown's face all kind of dancing around. So something's working. All of those guys are still with the program as of right now, as far as we know. So We'll see what happens. I'm holding out hope, but best of luck to the coaching staff. Best of luck to Avery and keeping as many guys around that we want to keep. I guess on that note, let's get to the portal and talk about the guys who have announced that they're leaving or are in the portal. Carver Willis is one of the biggest names that's on that list. Obviously, a guy that I'm super disappointed to see enter the portal because, long story short, my wife's family knows his family from where they grew up in Texas. They're on, texting basis, good family friends. So super disappointed to see him enter the portal, but I get it. I mean, if the coaching staff for whatever reason is wanting to go with more, maybe the younger guys who haven't had many opportunities, or, just next man up, and they're just ready to get that rotation going, then it makes sense from a coaching staff's perspective. But I am bummed to see that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him as a Colorado Buffalo next year, potentially. He lives in Colorado. His family's from here, and we all have heard a lot about the sack numbers that Colorado's given up over the course of the last 2 years. They've had kind of a leaky offensive line, to put it lightly, over the last couple of years. So Carver has entered. Maybe I'll go through the names, and then we can, I'll give you the mic and just let you wax poetic on whoever you want to. Trey Spivey's another guy who entered the portal, obviously kind of came on late in the season, and is a guy that we were all really excited about.
Is he officially in, though? I think the trendy thing to do is to plans to enter. Those famous last words is plans to enter. I don't know if he's actually in or not.
According to On3, it's showing that he entered the portal on December 9th.
Okay.
Which would have been yesterday as we're recording this. So I'm seeing him on that list. Again, a guy that came on a little later in the season, a guy that we were all really excited about when we signed him initially. Obviously, the pedigree of having an MLB dad is very neat, very cool. I know Junior Spivey at least listened to a couple of shows or at least followed the show on Twitter, which was cool to have that connection, but definitely a guy you're bummed to see because he has wide receiver 1 potential, certainly.
Yeah.
Or at least, but Scott made a great point on Bosco's Boys earlier this week of you've got the 105 guy roster limit now. You have to make some decisions on some guys, and you're going to have a wide receiver room that's maybe 7 guys next year, and you're going to have to make some tough choices on the roster management side of things in a way that maybe you haven't in the past.
Yeah, it stinks to have young talent like that is proving themselves. You know, I mean, he's still young, and, you know, that's just the era that we're in right now, especially guys that aren't necessarily local talent, to get them to stay not close to home, not necessarily playing at a consistent basis. So you could promise the guy all the things in the world, and I'm sure they promised him when they first recruited him that you're going to be able to see the field. But if you're not proving yourself that you could see the field, whether that's the coach's fault, we can all, you know, bash the coach on Monday or however we want to do it. But these guys aren't just going to stick around and just, you know, wait on the bench for 3 years anymore. It's just not going to happen. So I don't knock Trey for entering the portal, and shout out to Junior Spivey. You're my dog. But yeah, it sucks to see Trey go, because I think with all the writing on the wall with how he was being utilized the last few games, I think it was inevitable that he was going to see the field a lot more. But
yeah,
he'll probably see the field a lot more wherever he goes. So it stinks for us, but it's a blessing for him that he has the options to do that.
Yeah, totally. And any thoughts on Carver before I go through the rest of these names? Because honestly, I'll go through the rest of these names, and you may have 1 or 2 things to say about the entire list. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Carver, it hurts because we've seen where Carver came from. He grew a lot. I mean, he started as he started a couple games as a true freshman. I remember that TCU game in where are they at? Fort Worth. He went in and filled in at left tackle. So he's been playing for a long, long time. I think that was the COVID season for God's
That was
sakes.
COVID. Yeah, that was COVID season.
Yeah, Carver Willis, I mean, he's grown so much. I mean, remember the Mizzou game? He was struggling in that Missouri game so much, but where he ended up, I think he showed athleticism, he showed consistency, and when he took over that right tackle position, you heard his name called a couple times, which is not a good thing as offensive lineman, but for the most part, he did a lot, and he contributed to one of the best rushing, probably the best rushing performance in K-State history. So it's going to stink to see him go, but we do have younger talent underneath him that I don't know if he was pushed out or however that went down. I wasn't in that room or in those conversations, but man, oh man, when you're pushing or having talent move on, older talent, leadership talent, because he was always vocal, he was always in the media press availability, to have some younger guys being able to fill his shoes is going to be important. And I think we do have those guys, or the coaches would not have had this situation go down the way it did. But Carver is a dog. He'll land on his feet for his final year in college football. Hopefully it's not with the Buffaloes, because I don't want to play him.
Might be the Buckeyes too. I don't know. I saw one of my good buddies he's a huge diehard Ohio State fan. He's like, "Did you guys push this guy out too?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know." I'm not an insider. And he says, "Oh yeah, sure." And I'm like, "But I'm not an insider."
I don't know if
he and the Buckeyes folks seem to be under the impression that he was pushed out, similar to Will Howard, in that he may land in Columbus. So who knows? Who knows what's going on?
Yeah, I would imagine that he ends up. If I had to guess, and put my 2 cent, or if I had to put $1 bet on where he ends up, I'm gonna say he ends up in. I say he goes to Houston.
Interesting.
I think he goes to Houston. That's where my money's at.
Huh. Well, I'll believe. Write it down, put it in your notepad, and we'll revisit it in a few weeks or a month or whenever we finally find out where it is. The rest of the list here. So Taquan Roberson, TQ, bless his heart, bless his soul. Respect everything that he did in the few moments that he came in for Avery Johnson this season. I mean, he did what he was asked to do.
Game winner versus Colorado, if you ask me.
Honestly, I kind of wish he had an extra year of eligibility to keep him as a backup in case we needed him. But as in, like, I don't know. Well, maybe I take that back. We got some dudes behind Dylan Duff. We got Blake Barnett. I don't know. I take that back. TQ was a very serviceable stand-in guy, 1 year
exactly
guy.
what I thought he would. Yep.
He did exactly what we all thought he would do. And good to have another Roberson on the roster.
That was
didn't quite meet or live up to those expectations, but he also didn't need to, and we didn't necessarily want him to either. Jordan Dunbar, Cam Salas, Terry Kirksey, Alec Marenko, no surprise there. Darrell Jones, Justin Wolf, Donovan Ryman, and Erwin Nash are all the guys that have entered the portal. Yeah. Some of those names, Erwin Nash, that might be the first time I'm hearing that name, to be honest.
Really? I mean, he's a local KC guy.
Special teams guy. Maybe
he's a big body receiver. I think we have enough of those on the roster.
Yeah.
But he was one of those NIL scholarship guys.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. The only guy on there that I'm really disappointed in, I mean, Jordan Dunbar was a mercenary, and we never really got to see him. And he, after his one all-conference season at Rice, he kind of fell off for some reason, and I'm probably assuming that was the same reason why he didn't make it at K-State. But the one guy is Cam Salas.
I was gonna guess Kirksey.
Yeah, Terry Kirksey, JUCO guy. He would never really seem like he had the frame. And when we recruited him, I feel like we were recruiting, what was his name? Malik Benson from Hutchinson. Oh. We were trying to get Malik Benson. So I think
the guy that ended up going, was he
Alabama?
From yeah.
No, I think he went to Alabama. He went to Alabama.
Because there was also the guy from Tennessee that was a linebacker that I think we took Marenko over.
Yeah, Herring.
Yeah.
And he ended up going to Memphis, and I think he had a solid season. But
yeah,
both injury prone, so they kind of just flipped a coin for that one. But Terry Kirksey, I think we got him on scholarship to try to get Malik Benson as well, in the same class, but it never really panned out. Never really the weight thing that it hurts coming from JUCO. It's like the way JUCO is ran now. It's a real crapshoot what you're going to get out of these guys. But Cam Salas, I mean, a safety that moved the linebacker that was, really working right behind Desmond Purnell. He got in some action. I feel like he had a sack in garbage time. I don't remember what game it was this season, but he had a really monster sack. He looks the part, physical, big body guy, and he looks, from all indications from all the Kansas State media that comes out, especially during the offseason, warming up to the season, he seems like a very likable guy, real team first kind of guy. So it stinks to see him go, especially because he's so young. But, like I said, when you're not a local guy and you're asked to sit in Manhattan, Kansas and ride the pine and get very few snaps, it's hard to get these guys, especially their DMs are open. They're not blocking these coaches from, who knows? I don't know where he'll end up. Maybe, where is he from? Is he from Alabama? No,
I don't know off the top of my head.
Where's Cam Salas from? Damn.
Let me find out.
It's somewhere in the South. I want to say Georgia. Georgia or
Kennedale, Texas.
Texas, huh? Well, either way, I mean, he's not from here. He's not from the Kansas area or surrounding area, so it's hard to keep these guys just happy for 3 years to not do anything and say, hey, on your third year after you've redshirted and not played, you're gonna have a role, and you're always getting and these guys aren't oblivious to being recruited over.
Oh yeah.
So like these guys aren't like, oh, they're recruiting more linebackers. That's more competition on top of me that I have to work through, and that's just the era we're in. So it stinks. You would think like a kid that's been in the system for 3 years, grinding, to have a guy that gets recruited, not necessarily over you, but to have depth in that room. I've got more knowledge of the system that we're running. I can maybe outwork this guy and have knowledge of where he's going to be lacking on scheme and all that stuff. I might have a leg up. You would think that they would want to stick around for that, but that's just the era we're living in.
Yeah, it's we'll get to the mercenary thing here in a minute, but that's for a different
And I think a lot of this has to do with the 105 roster spot thing now.
Yeah.
So like you got to have all these guys on scholarships and all this stuff. The walk-ons are basically dead, and your depth has got to be really proven depth, because a lot of them are going to need to play. So it stinks, but what are you going to do, brother?
Yeah.
Keep on recruiting. That's what we keep doing.
I would love that. I would love for us to keep recruiting. Commitment wise, we got nothing yet, but we're on the second day of the portal being open, so I wouldn't have expected that without any sort of backlash about tampering at some point. So as we've seen from other programs that tend to be very vocal about tampering, like the Oregons of the world, hopefully wanting to avoid some of that. But as far as targets, I think we have some ideas of at least a handful of targets. I think the guy that I'm most excited about potentially joining the team is the guy whose brother we just got the commitment from. And I don't know if we'll get this guy, because I think he's getting chased after by Bama, a couple other places. But, I don't know that it's necessarily a coincidence that his brother decommits from NC State, commits to K-State, and then signs last week. So you're just reading the tea leaves with that one for the most part. But Kevin Concepcion, KC Concepcion, I know our guy from Red and White Pod last year previewing the Pop-Tart Bowl had a lot of really great things to say about him. And I've taken that with me from that moment. I'm like, he's the one player I remember off of that team primarily. With the exception of what the linebacker that didn't play the game last year,
Peyton Willis, starter for the Steelers. I remember their quarterback because he was running, rough shot for a little bit. He was absolutely murking us for a little bit, but Casey Concepcion, that kind of a do-it-all guy. It's kind of what you would kind of want Dylan Edwards to be, if you think about it, like a real receiving threat. That can line up in the backfield and take a couple rushes a game. That's a guy that you just get 15 touches. It's not necessarily has to be 20 rushes or 10 catches, but you want to get him 15 touches, 7 and 7 somehow. Get him on the board, get the ball in his hands, and I think like you said, it's some heavy hitters going after him, and he's got visits lined up. And I don't know if I think Tuscaloosa is where he'll be at first. And I don't know if he'll make it out of Tuscaloosa. Yeah. I think he'll be a Crimson Tide by the end of that weekend. If you ask me, it stinks, but his brother, let's hope his brother has, the genetic tree that hit him too, where he can do a lot of those things as well.
Yeah. I would love that. Thinking more broadly about the portal, knowing that, we've also got signing day to talk about some of those guys, but not all of those guys are going to be available on day one. There's only a couple guys who are going to be the first ones getting off the bus, who are going to be ready to go after an off-season program with Coach True if they enroll early, and if they don't, basically just fall camp. So thinking about the depth, thinking about the losses we've had, and taking into account all of that, Where are you wanting to target? Because I've heard a lot of talk about linebacker. Obviously, we lose Trey Spivey. You got to go out and get a wide receiver to kind of fill that void. But where are you prioritizing this staff going out and getting guys from the portal? And what kinds of guys are you thinking about within those position groups?
For me, the first thing that I think of is O-line. If we're being honest, we're thinking about losing 4 offensive linemen if waivers don't get passed. Because Hadley's looking for a waiver, Taylor's looking for a waiver.
Yep.
And we lose Kilty, we lost Carver. That's everybody but a second team all Big 12 Sam Heck, by the way. So O-line is absolutely essential. I mean, you got Liney. Liney will step into a starting offensive line position. I'm almost 100% sure of that.
And last year's recruiting class had a ton of offensive line talent, but those guys are young still. And
Exactly.
was it last year a redshirt? The redshirt freshman from this year was
both.
Caden Massey, Gus Hawkins.
Gus Hawkins was a true freshman this year, but the year before that we had Drake Beckwith. We had John Pastore.
Yep.
I mean, those guys, we've had probably 4 offensive linemen in a class the last few years. And those guys are going to have to step up, but I think we're going to have to hit the portal. I think at least for 1 tackle and probably 1 guard that we're going to have, unless waivers get filled, which Taylor Portier, I don't think will get a waiver. Maybe Hadley, because he's like arguing that he only played like 50 snaps that 1 year that didn't count towards counted towards one of his seasons of eligibility. So maybe Hadley comes back. That would be nice, but we need O-line bad. And I think we've got some dogs from the FCS level that could possibly come in. Maybe Big Ten transfers. I saw a kid from Northwestern that looked really, really solid. I saw him versus the Buckeyes firsthand in where they play Wrigley. He looked really, really good. And then for me, it's got to be corner. It has to be. You have to have 2 corners that can come in and contribute, not necessarily start. I mean, if Xavion Rich and Donovan McIntosh can step up and be corners that can play, you have other corners on the team that are depth pieces, but you need contributors, guys that can rotate in and play. Justice James is a solid piece, but he's not a starter. He needs to be in limited roles. So I think you need corners, and I think we're gunning for some of those guys too. Lower level guys, D1 transfer. I mean, FBS transfers, Power 4 transfers. We'll see where those lead us, but I think those are the 2 main ones. And then you got to go linebacker just because. And I think this is maybe just like 1 piece or maybe 2. I don't know. I think 1, because you have 2 starters automatically coming back with Desmond Purnell and Austin Romaine. But oh man, with Asa Newsom's injury, that really kills you with your depth, because who knows when he comes back? Will he be the same kind of player or anything like that?
Yep.
But and Bo Palmer gone. Just guys like that could come in and play. Maybe Rex Van Wy takes a step and he's a guy that can play that will linebacker in replace of Austin Moore. But you need guys, and we've got a lot of linebackers that are going to be true freshmen this season. And Jake Stonebreaker came as a redshirt this year.
Yep.
But you need maybe a senior to come in there and be a guy and be a tackling machine.
Yeah. Yep. Linebacker scares me a lot, and the hit rate on linebackers for this staff in the portal is pretty rough.
It's pretty brutal, but I think
I remember being excited about Will Honus, and then he'd never played a snap.
and that's the thing. I mean, not necessarily that it's bad talent evaluation. I think it's more we're taking chances on guys, because before when we're going after the Will Honus and we're going after the Alex Marenkos and guys like that, they were trying to be starters. But Austin Romaine was going to play. He had already proven himself that he was going to play. So you're not necessarily dependent on these guys. So you're taking flyer chances on guys with knee injuries, guys with lingering hamstrings and stuff like that, and debilitating back injuries. It stinks that these are the guys that we're trying to get in and hopefully can play. But if they can't, then so be it. But now I think with how the roster is set up and how young we are and having really only 2, maybe 3 warriors on this team that have seen the fire, you've got to have a guy and you cannot miss 6 times in a row.
No, absolutely not. You definitely cannot miss again. And hopefully go after someone who's not injury prone or doesn't have a history of that and is a guy who maybe is a next man up at another program, like a Power 4 program, probably.
Now, hear me out. Hear me out. I don't know if we probably will have no contact with this guy. And I mean, he was awesome when I remember watching him. He was a little slow, but you know, if you put Austin Romaine, I think Austin Romaine could play anywhere on the linebacking core and he'll be fine. If you put that Manu kid from Arizona at middle and just plug that middle, just play the middle. I don't need
Manu, I think was his name.
Just play the middle. I don't need you running sideline to sideline. I need you to just absolutely stick guys right in the middle. That would be a guy that I would really, really like to see play for K-State.
Yeah. Well, and depth wise, so maybe getting into the signing day class here a little bit. Austin Moore's little brother, who I think you mentioned a few weeks ago, you're like, I think this might have been a psyop to get Ashton Moore, who's actually the better athlete, to come to K-State and commit.
I remember calling for his little brother. This was years ago. I was like, his little brother is going to be a stud. He's the better athlete. He was a sophomore in high school at the time. I'm like, Ashton Moore is going to be a stud. And
he's 3-star on 3 services. He's 2-star on 1, but like, I mean, he's
Lewisburg, Kansas. I mean, what do you expect?
I'm hoping he can be like an Austin Romaine and be a true freshman guy, depth piece that comes in, rotates in. And
he's a good athlete, but I think he needs the weight. He's not like when Austin Romaine came in, he was all of 230 pounds already.
Yeah.
This guy, he probably pushing 205 pounds. You put him, if he's got the work ethic of the machine like his brother, he's going to be a stud. There's no doubt about it in my mind. That's a good call, Bob. I was almost forgetting that he was in this class.
But this class, so they signed 25 guys out of high school this past week. So I guess a week ago almost, or exactly a week ago. But we got him. I was in the hotel. We had just gotten in the night before. Wednesday morning, I'm like on pins and needles. I'm waiting. And then I see the text go flying through. I see the tweets go flying through, and I'm like, we got him. It happened. It came down to the wire. Oregon was, they made as good of a case as they probably could have possibly made to get Lincoln Cure. They had him in the final game of the season in Eugene, Oregon at Autzen Stadium, and K-State fended off the number 1 program in the country right now going into the college football playoff. I mean, that's the headliner, obviously.
We're gargantuan. It's a gargantuan brand.
We're a gargantuan brand. As we finished out the season too, to be able to fend off the number 1 team in the country.
Think about what
speaks a lot to the relationships that this staff has been able to develop. Yeah. Also, with losing Colin Klein last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Brian LePack is having a lot more influence than what maybe even Colin Klein was going to be able to do. But Lincoln Cure did show his respects to Texas A&M just because where Colin Klein was at. Right. But Brian LePack, I think, did a lot of heavy lifting on this. Taylor Bratt is invaluable. You cannot put a value on Taylor Bratt. You just can't. The dude is a savant when it comes to relating with kids in this generation, especially the local kids. Like, a kid from Kansas, he's the cat whisperer. He's going to get in their ear and press all the right buttons, do exactly what needs to be done to land these kids. I will say we're a gargantuan brand on this point alone. Look at what Oregon did on signing day. They were flipping kids left and right, 5 stars after 5 stars, flipping them from programs like Ohio State. I mean, Cal's not a monster brand, but that kid was Cal through and through, and they go in the witching hour and they flip a 5-star quarterback with look at the quarterbacks that they have in their room already.
And if Cal's going to have a year where they're going to have a 5-star, it's going to be this year just because they were, 4-0 to start the season. You got the Calgorithm on Twitter's popping off. Like, I feel like Cal football is better than it's been since Aaron Rodgers was there.
Marshawn Lynch. I mean,
Lynch.
But yeah, just think of what we did to keep Lincoln Cure. All these programs could not hold on to their top talent, but Kansas State could. So Lincoln Cure, it's all about relationships. It's all about family. And I mean, if now you're going to have to recruit him every year, every month, basically. Sure. You're going to have to recruit him forever. But if he wasn't willing to go on signing day when nobody was going to knock him if he committed to Oregon, because we knew about what was happening throughout his recruitment. If he would have flipped to Oregon, nobody would have really knocked Lincoln Cure for it. So if he could have done it then, why would he transfer out? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're already here. You've already done the hard. You've had the chance. You had the chance to do it. If anything, it would have been easier for him to commit to Oregon and then come back home and,
Chris Harper and
all those things. So it's going to be even stranger to, go through his whole commitment. But I'm not going to, I'm knocking on wood, all the synthetic wood that I have in here, that he'll never play in another uniform other than Kansas State until he turns pro. But yeah, Lincoln Cure, the prize emerald of this class. It's awesome.
I was overjoyed when that came through. Obviously, he's a 5-star according to 247. He's 4-star on 3 other services, but he's a 5-star in our hearts and our minds. He's
right there, though. I mean, for all those services, he's right there.
It's ridiculous that he's not a 5-star consensus, but whatever. That's a bone that we can pick another time. Anyway, other guys in the class, because there are other 4-stars. 5-star, not 5 stars, but we got other 4 stars. Brock Heath, RJ Collins, and Adonis Moyes are all 4 guys that are 4-star. Well, 3 guys that are 4-star in addition to Lincoln Cure, according to ESPN. When you look at rivals, no 4 stars. When you look at 247, you've got Noah King, who is a 4-star cornerback, according to
shout out to Fairfield, Ohio, right down the block. Not too far from me. Dude's a dog.
Yeah.
Dude is a dog. Work ethic.
In general, I love the class. I think according to On3, 37th in the country, 4th in the Big 12, which I'd say in a 16-team conference, 4th is not a bad place to be in when you're looking at just the Big 12, knowing that most of the 5 stars all went SEC Big 10. So not a whole lot that you can do there. Being able to fend off a program that has more money than God is definitely helpful if you're going to be trying to win those battles. But 8% of the class is blue chips, 20% of the class is in state. Just a good class. I feel confident about a lot of these guys that I feel like are maybe flying under the radar a little bit, like a Martell Jackson, Ontario Elston. Some of those guys I'm really excited about because you've heard a lot of good things. Maybe again, Kleiman's done a phenomenal job Kleiman and his staff over the last 6 years to be able to identify good developmental talent, get them into the system, get them to that next level, similar to an Austin Moore or Austin Romaine, who was a guy that we were dogging. And when we did that national signing day, we're like, why do we even have this guy? He's like 0 stars, 2 stars, whatever he was. And now he was the first guy in that class really to see significant snaps. So I feel good about this staff's ability to identify, develop that talent as we have for 4 years now. Who else on this signing day roster sticks out to you? Who are you most excited about? Who's first off the bus?
That's exactly what I was going to say. You took the words right out of my mouth. the guy that I'm most excited. Okay, most excited, but like a gem in this class that I think is going to be the guy first off the bus. His name is Logan Bartley. Remember the name. Logan freaking Bartley. And Mary Flipmas to us. We didn't flip him at signing day, but we flipped him off of Wake Forest. The dude is yoked. I mean, absolutely scared. It's scared. Like it. I remember playing high school football. We've all played high school football and all this stuff. If I had to see that guy, what are we talking about? That dude is an alien. 6'1", 190 pounds, and I don't believe it. There's no way that this dude's frame is 190 pounds. I'm going to pull up a picture of him just because he's so freaking scary. That guy, I think, and I listened to Drew Galloway and Mason Foth's signing day special, and Drew said that he'll probably lead the league in targeting because the dude will absolutely stick you, and he'll put his head right in there. So I'm most excited for Logan Bartley because the dude is a freak of all freaks, and he's scary as all hell. So, Logan Bartley, that one's on the defensive side for sure. And then there's offensive guys. You said Monterio Ellison. I mean,
Dylan Duff was a good get as well.
Yeah, Dylan Duff. I think he's going to be a serviceable guy. I mean, just listening to him, he sounds like an absolute grown man. Like he sounds like a leader. He sounds like he sounds like he should be like leading a Fortune 500 company right now. But he's 17, maybe 18 years old. I don't know if he won that state championship or not. I'm not entirely sure. But winner. We'll see what he can. He reminds me of Skylar Thompson. We'll see where he's at in terms of his development and where he's at as a runner, because I think he is an athlete, especially on the basketball court. But I think guys like that aren't the elite of elite arms, especially in this system, you've got to be willing to, carry the ball 11 times for 52 yards and maybe a tutty and expect to get the shit kicked out of you for a little bit.
I love it. I think this is going to be a fun class to watch. This is our third year doing this now. So we've had a few classes now that we've been able to at least kind of grow along with, but looking forward to watching these guys develop over time, get into Coach True, Body by True, and see where they end up come, August 30th, whenever the season starts. All right. Men's and women's basketball. We've talked a lot about football. And, I guess before we get into men's and women's basketball, I do want to talk CFP. And I don't have a ton to say other than I think the committee, for the most part, kind of got it right. I think adding SMU in there, despite the fact that it's two ACC teams. One of them is a brand, the other one isn't. I think it's a hell of a lot better for the committee to identify, SMU shouldn't be penalized for losing a 13th game more than Alabama gets penalized for dropping a game. And there you go for the video, for the viewers view.
What the hell is that thing?
Oh my God. Yeah, he looks grown already. Anyway, my point was, I think SMU shouldn't be penalized for playing a 13th game and losing. What, in overtime? Didn't that game come down to overtime? Or it was really close? Team? SMU.
They lost on the last-second field goal by a freshman kicker from 54 yards or 56 yards away. Absolute insanity.
And they came back from down, 20 or 24 points, something like that.
I think it was 24-7.
Yeah.
And they came back and got themselves back into that game. It was an epic game. All the conference championships outside of the Big 12 were elite.
And Mountain West. Mountain West was kind of just a boat race by boys.
Yeah, but I mean, we kind of all expected that.
Well, except for me, unfortunately. But I think the committee got it right. SMU should not be penalized for playing a 13th game more than Alabama gets penalized for playing a 12th game and losing to Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, that was, 24-3 or whatever it was, a horrible, horrible loss. So I think the committee got it right. I love that they're setting that precedent now. And I wish it was a Big 12 team that was in there, despite the fact that it would probably be Iowa State, but I'm glad it's not Iowa State. But if the shoe's on the other foot, you think about it that way. If Iowa State is a one-loss team going into the conference title game, and they keep it close and they lose by 2 points to Arizona State in the championship game, I think it's Iowa State that's in that game as opposed to an SMU if it's the exact same thing flipped.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa State had their chances similar to all these teams that are, griping and they're doing a bunch of yapping about whatever they feel slighted or whatever. This is a 12-team playoff. How many more of these teams do you think deserve it? A 3-loss team does not deserve to be in this. I mean, I don't care what conference you're in. Don't lose those games. If you're so good that you think you're one of the 12 best
don't
teams
lose the Vandy.
Don't do it. Just don't do that. And I mean, the same could be said about Arizona State. They lost to Cincinnati, but they're a conference champion. And I think there is value in winning your conference. Now, do I think all the conferences are balanced? No. The SEC is a clearly better conference than the Big 12 in terms of talent, in terms of top-end teams for sure. But you've got to win these games. If you think you're one of the 12 best teams in the conference, win the games. That's all you have to do. We were talking as K-State fans, we control our own destiny. Now we don't. Everybody at the start of the season controls their own destiny.
1,000%.
So 9-3, you lost me. You lost me. I don't care. In all honesty, if they would have lost to the really good teams on their resume, it still would have been the same to me. If you're one of the 12 best teams, you got to beat everybody on your schedule.
Yeah. And I'd like to see double digits in that win column. I don't want to see any 9-win teams sneaking in unless your losses, if Alabama's losses had been to Texas, Georgia, and Arizona State, if your 3 losses are to 3 college football playoff teams, then maybe there's an argument.
But then who have you beat? I mean, that's the same thing we're saying with SMU should not have even been in question if that's the whole argument, because the whole argument was that Alabama had played a tougher schedule and had better wins than SMU, which is true. But they beat all the teams on their schedule except outside of one until the conference championship game.
And that team
Alabama
was
did not
effectively in the playoff every single week until they dropped that game to no, I'm talking BYU.
Oh, BYU.
Until they finally lost and the Mormon Magic ran out. They were the team from the Big 12, and they were the only team from the Big 12 as part of that conversation because of all the chaos.
Exactly. So SMU, they didn't really beat a whole bunch of people, but they were beating them. So to further my point, win those games that you think that you're better than the team in front of you. If you're better, then you would win the games. So good teams find a way to win throughout the season. And would I like for them to get rid of conference champion automatic qualifier? I think I would. I mean, it would probably hurt the Big 12 in terms of getting an automatic team in there. But the conference as a whole, if we start getting the recognition of, especially early, like Kansas State, this is a Kansas State pod, and I'm going to be a little bit of homer here. We started the season at 16? I think that was our opening rank. And then we were 7-1, and we were right there in the conference when the CFP polls came out.
Yep.
If we win those games, they were respecting Kansas State. They were respecting
They still
us.
are. I feel like they respect the hell out of K-State, and it's kind of wild, but I mean, I get it.
But they respected the hell out of Kansas State. Yep. They respected a lot of teams in the Big 12. BYU, they were undefeated, and they were still respecting us. So
they kept us in that final poll going into the final week of the season too, before the Iowa State game.
So what my argument would be is to get rid of automatic qualifiers. Maybe it helps the SEC in the long run. I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, I don't make any money off the CFP, so it doesn't matter. I want to see the best product, and I want to see the best teams. But a 9-3, if Bama is 9-3 without automatic qualifiers. Maybe they get in, maybe they don't. They're right there on the edge. Who knows? I don't know. But
I don't know that I trust the committee enough to respect the other teams in the Big 12 because they showed a lot of respect to K-State and they showed a lot of respect to BYU, but Arizona State wasn't shown really any respect until the final 4 weeks of the season. I would love to keep the automatic qualifiers with the exception of I think the situation with Boise State this year was a little bit of an interesting one because the reason why they're getting a first round bye is because they have a Heisman Trophy probable winner who's on their roster. And that's probably the reason why they kind of skipped over. Because I think when they designed this format, the idea was Power 4 gets automatic qualifier, and then the best G5 conference would get one of the spots that maybe an at-large bid would be contending for. Yeah. And so Boise State, for whatever reason, though, they've got a Heisman Trophy potential winner, finalist.
Well, the thing about it is, though, that they respected Boise from the beginning of the season when Boise State almost beat the number one team in the country right now.
It's Oregon and it's Ashton Jeanty, I think, are the reasons why.
Well, yeah, but they respected Boise, and if Boise keeps winning, who's on in front of them? They respected UNLV. They beat a Kansas team that everybody really liked.
Yeah.
They beat them twice. Why would they not get respect for that? So what I'm saying is, I think the committee, people get these blinders because we all watch ESPN. ESPN is, their brand is tied to the SEC. So they're going to pump up the SEC as much as they can. This committee does not, I don't think they give a shit. They want the best teams. I think they want the best teams in there. And they're watching these games. And when you watch Cam Skattebo is an absolute animal. They're going to watch that and they're going to say, okay, these guys can compete. Maybe not if they plot them in the SEC, they would struggle a little bit. They probably want to win as many games as they can. But on a one game field right there, and you got to play one game, Arizona State might be able to put up a fight. And I think
who did they beat early in the season? They beat Mississippi State. So if you want to argue SEC versus Big 12 specifically for Arizona State, they beat them as a Mississippi State team. So
they stink though. But I
don't care. A win is a win.
Exactly. But I think we should get rid of conference automatic qualifiers. I think we should just put the best 12 teams in there. I don't think that the committee would do the disservice of just having 8 SEC teams in there. That wouldn't be good for their bottom line. I don't think that would be good for the playoff because people would not watch it. They've already watched the SEC. They've already watched it. Why would we want to watch the same 8 teams play each other again?
I hope you're right. I hope you're right about that. I also
they're
hope
not going to get rid of conference.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's going to happen before they get rid of conference champions automatic qualifiers. The SEC and the Big Ten will not be in it. They'll take their ball and go home before they get rid of, before that happens. So I think that's what should happen. I think that would be, more fair to everybody because, I just think that I honestly think that the committee watches ball. I think they care about diversity because if they didn't, they would have matched up a couple Big Ten teams in the first round and got it over with instead of spreading it out.
And Boise State would have been, the 12th seed. They would have been the last team in. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Fair argument. I disagree to an extent, but I think that's just because I'm Chicken Little and I'm scared the Big 12 is going to get left out because I've got PTSD from.
But we've only got one team in now. We've only got one team in now. So it's not necessarily like we're getting screwed over. Like we've got 2 teams in there. We've already got only one.
No, so the precedent they set though, unless they're putting the ACC strength-wise and everything else above the Big 12, which maybe they are with how late they had Miami ranked in the season, and they were clearly fraudulent from the very beginning. I don't think that they would, if it's the exact same situation on the other side of it, and the Big 12 had, the 11-1 team with an out of conference loss to the ACC, a team that played in the ACC championship game or was the third best team in the conference. I don't think that they would leave a second Big 12 team out.
Okay, this is to be the last thing I say on this. I mean, not that I don't mind I love having this conversation with you, but I think the thing is we're dealing with a season that is kind of unprecedented outside of like 2006.
Totally. It's totally unprecedented because
this was
of
a
the realignment.
absolute chaos season as well. I mean,
yeah.
The Big 12 in general just beat the hell out of each other. So if you've got
so did the SEC,
exactly.
It was crazy.
They spread it out. If it was any other year where you have an Oregon and Ohio State clearly better than a Penn State, and you don't have an Indiana, but that's the thing. I'll go on a little tangent off of that. With the unbalanced schedules in these super conferences, the Big Ten has damn near 20 teams. I think they have 20 teams. 20 teams in the conference. They're not going to all play each other, and you're going to have teams that are just astronomically good on record wise because they just didn't play anybody. But that's not the point. If we have just a normal season where the Big Ten has 2 good teams, maybe 3, the SEC has their two elite teams, then a couple really good teams.
Yeah.
The Big 12 has an absolute alpha, and then somebody that's right there on their heels. I think you're going to get more balance. And with the way the portal works, people are going off of like who went to these smaller schools, and that's how they're getting ranked so early. You get an Ashton Genty in there because Ashton Genty's a dog, and they're gonna hype that baby up. Like you said, he's a Heisman candidate. They want to get him on the field as much as they possibly can for viewers' eyeballs.
Oh yeah.
But I think this season was just a little bit. It's unfortunate that the 12-team playoff happened on a season where it was absolute chaos season, and you've got really the line between 10 and 15 is kind of blurred. So it's like hard to get those perfect amount of teams in there. But I think in any other season, it would be pretty easy to tell who the top 12 teams are.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Men's and women's basketball. Let's start with the women's team. Let's start with the women's team because the women's team is a kick-ass basketball team, 13th in the country right now. They are coming off of wins against Texas A&M and South Carolina Upstate, where they put up 110-24. Might have been just one of the highest point discrepancies in K-State women's basketball history. And then this is an A&M team that's not very good. They're 5-5 right now, but you beat them by 39 points. You beat them by 40. So this team is putting up numbers. And I think if I remember right, I think that the USC Upstate game, I don't think Yoki even played a minute of that game, did she?
She didn't play in the game.
So you're putting up 110 points without your best player.
Yep. Yeah, she after a dominating win over Eastern Illinois, where she sets the record for the all-time leading scorer. So yeah, I think they kind of got her on like an NBA pitch count where she's, you get a day off
load management.
Load management for Ioka Lee. But like you said, maybe A&M is not as good as we thought they would be, or where they might be a little underperforming. But that's what you're supposed to do with teams that are struggling. You bury them, and that's what we did. I mean, the untold. Well, everybody's talking about it, but Taryn Sides is the storyline from this basketball team. She is lights out right now. Is she carrying the team?
Maybe. Thinking a little bigger picture too. Your only loss right now is an 11-point loss to Duke, who at the time was ranked. Well, right now they're ranked 9th in the country. I think at the time they were ranked a couple spots behind us, but that's your only loss on the season. Now Duke's only loss on the season is to South Carolina, who has won 2 of the last 3 national championships. And Dawn Staley's probably the best coach in women's basketball right this second.
Yeah.
So they lost to a phenomenal, like the upper echelon of women's basketball by 11. So respectable loss to a respectable team whose respectable loss is to a respectable team. And it's like, okay, I mean, you start off with Cincinnati, Houston, Texas Tech, Utah. I mean, it's who's the best team that you play on this schedule until you get to Iowa State?
Ugh.
BYU? I don't
Texas
know.
Tech is. I think Texas Tech. They're 9-1. I mean,
Yes,
I don't.
Tech is 9-1.
I don't know
Utah's
anybody.
8-2.
I don't know anybody on their team though. That's the
Yeah,
only
and I don't
issue.
know who they've played.
Oh, they probably played nobody. But I mean, just Texas Tech 9-1. So we'll see if they can keep that train rolling.
Colorado obviously is that game right before Iowa State as well, and they as we know from last year in the tournament, that's going to be a test. They're a good team. So
yeah, I got a feeling when Kansas State plays Texas Tech will be 12, 13, 14-1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that will be a fun game in Manhattan. So we'll see if they're up to the test. Right now, I think ESPN has us at a 96.6% chance of winning that game. But we'll see where they have it when that game comes to fruition, if they're actually 14-1, because if they're 14-1, that is a really good record to have. We'll see if they can keep it up. But I think Kansas State are they the crown jewel of the conference
right now? It's K-State or Iowa State. There's the only two.
But Iowa State, who did Iowa State lose to? That was pretty embarrassing.
Let's see here.
I feel like they lost to somebody that they just should not have lost to.
They lost to South Carolina by 40, and they lost to Northern Iowa by 12.
That's the one. They lost to Northern Iowa by 12. Where did that come from? I mean, what is this Northern Iowa team doing?
I don't know. I don't even know.
They lost to a Creighton team that we beat the brake pads off of.
Yeah. It's a lot of fuzzy math going on. There's a lot of transitive property going on right now.
But that's and you could kind of do that in basketball.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
You could kind of do that in basketball
season because there's nothing else that you can really go off of because there's no conference play yet. But speaking of conference play, so K-State will tip off the conference season with Cincinnati on Sunday, December 22nd. Last two games before that, you got Middle Tennessee. They're playing at Bramlage. You got New Mexico State playing at Bramlage. That's Saturday and Wednesday, the 14th and the 18th, respectively. So I think you've got two easy tune-up games going into conference play. And I think this K-State team could be undefeated by the time we get to that Colorado matchup.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
Could be. I mean, like they probably should be.
Last year's game and the NCAA tournament, that one is beyond frustrating, dude. Now that
this team's they're gonna have women on this team are gonna have that game circled 1,000%.
Yeah, they have to, and me and Matt talked about this. I can't remember if that girl is on the roster for Colorado.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, I don't think this Colorado team is nearly as good as it was last year. So if this is one where they could put their foot on their necks and absolutely snap it, that would be ideal, and I would love to see it.
I would love to see it as well. What I don't want to see is this men's basketball team play another game. Frankly, I think it's been brutal to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say my piece before you get nuclear and I mute so I can laugh hysterically. It's disappointing, and we kind of all saw it coming. I mean, we knew that the St. John game was going to be tough because St. John's is a pretty good squad. They've got a pretty good squad, but when you see what we did in the first half of that game and to let what happened in the second half happen, it's just inexcusable. And I don't necessarily know how to fix that because I think it probably is the players too, but the players are here because of what the coaching staff is, what they're doing. What are they doing? So I'm going to retreat on this one, and I'll chime in when I feel the steam leave your ears.
So story time. So I was poolside in Cancun. As you all know, I was in Cancun because I got sent there because I lost fantasy. And I'm watching the game because if you've been to Mexico, you'll know this, but you can't stream anything there unless you're legally downloading or using a VPN, which most streaming services have figured out, including I use YouTube TV. But I'm watching the game on Stream East. Shout out to Stream East. That's where I do all my illegal streaming of out of market Chiefs games and all that other stuff. But I'm watching on Stream East. I'm sitting poolside. I'm talking. So Elmer, he was my poolside, my cabana boy guy. Elmer's just feeding me coffee drinks the entire day because I had a mocha. I was drinking like an ice mocha, and I said, it's going to go well with this poolside, like a shot of Kahlua. And so Elmer says, all right, I'm going to feed you coffee drinks all day. I can make you, White Russian. I can make you a Colorado Bulldog. I can make you a milkshake. I can do
a bushwhacker.
He wouldn't. I asked for bushwhackers. No one knew what it was. That's a Caribbean thing, man. So I don't think they make that on the Gulf of Mexico. But I'm asking. Elmer's feeding me drinks. I'm sitting there poolside. I'm just slurping down these drinks, and I'm also trying to pay attention to the Arizona State Iowa State game a little bit here and there. So our game goes to halftime. I switch over to that. I'm able to get it through VPN and ESPN, and once I see, okay, second half tip starts, I'm not able to watch the stream. So I'm in the dark completely on what's going on. And I'm like, I'm not going to watch the game cast. I'd rather watch Arizona State beat the piss out of Iowa State. So they do that. And then I get the notification of the final score and I see we lost the game by 17. And so my perspective on this is I saw the first half. Brendan Hawson's raining threes. The team looks phenomenal in that first half, and it might have been the best half of basketball I've watched all season so far against good competition. I'll add that caveat. And all I see is that notification. I'm like, we lost by 7. I'm shocked that we lost by 17 to a team that we were up 4 on it at halftime. I was shocked by that, especially with as lights out as the team was playing. I was telling my wife, I'm like, if this team can shoot above 40% from the field, they're probably going to win every game this season. Like, that's all you need to do is just shoot above 40 or 45%. And I think at the time we were shooting like 50% from the field in the first half or something. And then you look at the box score, because we're box score readers on this podcast, 35.2% is where we finished out the game. You only put up 32 points in the second half. They score 53 on you. The defense completely collapses. I felt like we were getting takeaways. I feel like we were limiting the turnovers. And then it's just the same shit again and again and again in the second half. It's just like every other bad game we played this season is the history keeps repeating itself. And I've reached a point now of just, I'm not at complete apathy because I really do care that this team is good and that they can continue to win games and be good. But dude, I don't see any possible path for this team to win even maybe 7 games in the Big 12 this season. I don't see it. This is a 20-game conference schedule, and this is the most grueling conference in college basketball. And you expect to put what you fielded on the court in the second half of that basketball game in and game out for a 20 conference schedule against the best competition in the country and somehow expect to make the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I want to, before you go on another little tirade, I want to.
That's my tirade. I'm
okay.
kind of over it. Like, I'm sick of what this team continues to put out on the court, and I'm sick of the excuses, and I'm sick of every year in and year out, going out, totally just destroying your entire roster, rebuilding it with mercenaries and dudes who don't look like they even want to fucking be out there every night.
There's a quote. I'm going to misquote him, but I don't really care. Jerome Tang, there was a stretch when we were up 4 till we had got down 9. With all within the first minute of the game, first few minutes of the few minutes of the second half, no timeouts called. Obviously, that's already been established that Tang refuses to coach on the sidelines. But he said that he tried to call timeout and that he specifically did not teach his team. He has to teach his team this, that on the road, you slow the game down, not speed it up. Like he has to remind the guys that he vetted to be on the team how to play basketball, like logical basketball. Like if you know a team's going on a run, you've got guys on your team that think, oh, let me go down and chuck a 3 real fast. That's what yours on. That's who you wanted to be on your team, and you can't get a timeout on. And I don't believe for a second that it was loud enough in that arena that the refs could not hear you to call timeout. I don't believe
Absolutely not.
I don't believe that. There's no way in hell you were doing. And Jerome was sitting exactly the way he does every game. He's sitting on his hands on the end of the scoring bench, watching this happen and watching it unfold. You went from up 4 to down 9. They didn't miss a shot. And you didn't want to break that up at all. Like you didn't want to break that up at all. That's a
You've been saying this for over a year now.
It's
almost to the date. Like you first brought up the timeout thing in December. I think it was the Villanova game last year.
Nuts.
Which was Big 12, Big East Challenge.
Honestly insane. Where they just he refuses to break up runs. He does not want to do it. The Phil Jackson thing still lives in infamy because he coaches like he's Phil Jackson.
You know what Phil Jackson did though? He won championships, and I don't see this team, or if they continue to do the same shit over and over again every single year, and just try to get these guys who are openly saying that all they want is to try to break NIL records. You're not going to do it. You're not. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, but any other coach has no problem with it. That's what I'm saying. Like they don't have a problem.
That's why I think, and I said this last year when we did I was lighting candles. I had a candlelit ceremony back here where we were doing our post-mortem of the 2023-2024 season. Here's my candle. And I said, I've got an angel and a devil on either shoulder right now. My angel is saying that what Coach Tang and this staff were able to accomplish with Marquise Noel, Keontae Johnson, Cam Carter, David Gasson, all the guys, Desi Sills, all the guys we had on that 2022-23 Elite Eight run, what they were able to do in year one, that's what the angel is telling me. Like they obviously, clearly very good coaches, clearly able to assemble a roster, clearly able to go out and identify talent that maybe was not appropriately utilized, or, in Keontae's case, you're going out and getting a guy who you're rolling the dice on health-wise, who no other programs were really able to clear or didn't want to, or programs weren't able or willing to take the risk on him. And, lightning strikes twice, whatever. And then I said in that episode, I've got the devil on my shoulder that's telling me, we heard for a long time that Scott Drew was a roll the ball out there kind of coach. And when it comes to the X's and O's, when it comes to the in-game management, when it comes to being able to, teach the fundamentals of basketball, all things, mind you, that Bruce Weber was quite good at in a lot of ways, especially, his downfall was roster development, and just there was a lot of other shit going on, but he could get his players to buy in. The play hard chart was a hilarious meme, but like I would bring back the freaking play hard chart right now, because these guys aren't playing hard and they don't really seem like they care at all. And what the devil was telling me on my shoulder, to get back to that point, was he's a roll the ball out there head coach, and this is bound for disaster. And this was the beginning of that starting to happen. I'm fully regretting the fact that we extended him after year one. And I don't think personally you should ever extend a coach after 1 year of track record, 1 year of sample size. You need to be able to see more than that. You need to be able to see an entire development cycle. And ideally, you're getting high school recruits that you can also keep on your team and develop that talent over the course of a couple of years, because there are other programs in the Big 12 as well, including down the road in Lawrence, where they get guys in high school and they do develop that talent and they pay them the NIL dollars that they warrant, and they can keep that guy and keep that core. And it's not as much of a problem for them. They still go out and they'll get guys like a Hunter Dickinson or the guy from Wisconsin, but it's like, I don't know, man. I feel like I've ranted enough, but I'm in a very, very, very low place with this program. And I don't think it's going to get any better before it continues to get worse.
Yeah, I think it's going to get worse. I mean, it's just weird. I mean, the team is just the team that we're assembled. I don't know if we're not playing our best guys, and our best guys that should be our best guys don't seem like they give it 100% when, shit hits the fan.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks, truly. I think they still have talent to do it, but are they going to be led talent? This talent isn't being led. I mean, you got guys from the best Coleman Hawkins has looked is under a guy that would get on his ass for playing bad. And I think Jerome Tang can do that, but that's not the kind of coach he is. He is not Brad Underwood.
No,
he is not Brad Underwood. And he might be motivational to an extent, but he's not getting these guys to buy in. It's not like the guys that he had the first year that were unheralded, that had chips on their shoulder, that anything like that. These guys were expect something to be expected from. They had high expectations, and when you got mercenaries that, if it's not going right, that can back out at any moment, they got their money. Who cares?
And you had clear leaders on those teams too. I think about this team. Who's the leader on the team outside of David Gasson?
And David Gasson doesn't say anything.
I mean,
he barely speaks English.
You would want it to be Doug McDaniel, but
he don't even start. He don't
play.
No.
Because he's not bought in. But like, that's the other thing is I feel like we hear the same shit in these press conferences over and over again too. And it's become a meme for me on KSO at this point to just ask, like, is he bought in though? Like, because Tang for the longest time last year and this year has used like, oh, he's not really bought in. And it's like, oh my God, dude. I mean, at a certain point, buying in is a result of coaching. It's not as much on the individual. Like, if you can't get your guys to buy in and we're fucking 9 games, 10 games into the season and they're not bought in yet, look inward, my brother. I mean,
I don't know what the long and short of it is this. This was Jerome Tang's prove it year.
Yeah.
He's held us hostage for 2 years.
Yep.
And after the first year, he had every right to do that because he had something tangible, and we didn't want to lose that because we gave him a chance. He worked hard with his team to get success. He said he needed more investment from us to get more results, and the results aren't coming. So what do? Do you call Jerome Tang's bluff? This is This is going to be Gene Taylor's finest moments. I'm telling you, man, this is going to be a legacy for Gene Taylor because we've got the consistency with Chris Kleiman. He's fallen short. This is probably the first time that he's fallen short, even though it is the first year in the Avery Johnson era. But Jerome Tang has fallen short twice. The season's not over, but it feels like it is. It's going to be fun to see what Gene Taylor does in this offseason if everything keeps going the way it is. Because the best win, we were trying to like do everything in our powers to sell to ourselves that win over Longwood was the catapult. Like, it was Longwood. What are we doing here?
I wasn't selling that to myself because I saw what happened in the Liberty game. I saw what happened in the Liberty game, and I said, dude, there's absolutely no way this team I mean, that after losing to LSU, after losing to Liberty, after losing to St. John's, now it's like, dude, this is just, when is the train? I'm watching a train crash in real time and I can't stop it, but I can't look away.
But the thing is, it's still early in the season. I don't want to be the optimistic guy, but I'm going to have.
Yeah, that's Matt's job. He used to be negative Matt. And now he's the one that's.
But I want to see, like you said, you're watching the train crash in real time. I'm going to need to see this train completely blow up off of the tracks. I'm going to need to see it.
I don't think we're far off from it, though.
No, but I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see us get back on the tracks and and get to where we're going. Because I'm not one of those fans, and that not that there's anything. I'm not going to ever judge anybody on how they fan, but I'm not going to sit here and prey on the downfall of Jerome Tang so I can say that I was right. Because I don't want to. I want him to be so successful that even though I don't want this, I don't want to be, begging for his services in every offseason. But especially let's say if they do get it back on track and good shit happens, if he asks for anything, I'd just say, let him go. Fuck it. just go. Go to greener pastures, brother. We'll figure it out from here.
Yeah. I mean, I've reached the point where I obviously I'm not going to be rooting against the team by any means. I'm not going to be just stop watching. I might stop watching the games if they're not worth watching. That's for sure. But I got a podcast to run too. So I kind of have to watch the games to be able to
I'll fill you in. You don't have to, but I'll fill you in.
But I would love to see the train get back on the rails and not just go careening off of the massive, massive cliff that I think it's headed for. And I want to be able to clip this in 3 months and say I was such a freaking idiot that I should have never have said any of that stuff. And I should have trusted Coach Tang, and I should have trusted his ability to be able to get this roster back on track and get this team back on track and to be able to develop I don't know if he's ever going to develop talent necessarily, but his ability to assemble a roster that makes sense and doesn't seem confusing just because it's all like the NIL guys we could get.
I swear to God, if he just commits to calling more timeouts, he should never go a game, especially even a blowout game or anything like that. It doesn't have to be a close game that you have to burn all your timeouts. Even in games where you're up, if they go on a 5-point stretch, just call timeout, man. Just get it. Just coach these guys. You want more time coaching them. You need more time doing that. If he commits to calling more timeouts and telling his guys to foul the hell out of everybody, I will be the biggest fan of Jerome Tang ever.
Yeah,
but he won't do that. He won't. And we've got bodies to foul people.
Yeah,
and they should not be getting stretches where they're making 4 freaking shots in a row. That should never happen in college basketball. Teams should never be able to make 4 shots in a row. Especially
when you've still got a guy like Byfall sitting on the bench who you're a big fan of fouls to give, and that's
a walking 5 fouls right there.
Didn't have a single minute in the game against St. John's. All right. That's enough ranting for tonight. I am very, very angry at the men's basketball team. Women's team, sunshine pumping all day, every day. Terrence Sides, Yoki, and the crew are going to bring us to the promised land, and I am confident of that. But that's going to do it for us today. We would like to thank our sponsor once again, Annie Mae's Parlor. They are at 616 North 12th Street in the heart of Aggieville. If you're stopping by, be sure to tell them Cocaine Willie sent you. And we are part of the College Huddle, which is not a network. We've been told explicitly not to call it a network, but we've never called it a network. It is the largest community of fan-driven content in the nation. You can check them out at thecollegehuddle.com or follow them on social media at College Huddle. And we are at Cocaine Willie on all sorts of social media. Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, we're on Blue Sky. TikTok, we're on TikTok. YouTube, we are on all of those platforms. Instagram, I think I might have mentioned that. Maybe I didn't. But we're on all of those different social media platforms. So follow us there. Follow us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Chef is at Chef Andre Napier. And our absent friend is north of the border. He is at Matt Marchesini. Chef,
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
We are all coke and no joke, Wildcat Country.
Let's freaking
Let's ride.
freaking